the workflow that's embedded in the SIS or ERP application. And it makes it difficult to extend and maintain. It's typically a very IT-centric task. And from a document retention perspective, there typically isn't any involved in these types of deployments. Next are more enterprise content management solutions, and these are solutions that basically you purchase by module. And so you have a deployment in accounts payable and you use some technologies there. If you would like to implement some of those technologies in admissions, for instance, those technologies would have to be relicensed and repurposed there. Basically, these are canned solutions that are linked to specific functionality. You're typically locked into a tight code base integration with the SIS or the ERP application. And there's, again, typically a high cost of ownership by having to repurchase those licenses. At ImageSource, we take a different approach. We use a flexible, customizable approach where we're deploying the right technologies to solve the exact business requirement and repurposing those technologies as required, or you're able to leverage those technologies throughout the enterprise without licensing issues. So the model looks like this, where we have a baseline ECM infrastructure that is able to facilitate many different parts of the organization, from a higher ed perspective, student services, administration, HR, finance, facilities. Any of those organizations, again, are able to then utilize those core pieces of technology and keep away from creating islands of information and share content across the enterprise. If we take a look at transcript processing in particular, and some of the challenges that enrollment services faces today, these are some of the things that we run into when we're out and about at different client spaces. Paper volumes continue to grow. Content is just flowing into the organization. There are inefficiencies relating to copying and managing and storing content in these paper-based or post-process scanning environments if you are doing scanning but doing it post-process. A lot of questions such as, where are the master copy of the student admissions folder? Typically we see folks making copies of transcripts or other key documents, and those are getting routed around manually through a paper process, and occasionally scanned at the end of the process, which again is very inefficient, as well as having to pay for storage of all that paper content. We're seeing a fairly substantial reduction in staff, in other words, budget reduction, fewer operating staff. At the same time, there are more applicants and demand is higher, so we're having to process more work with fewer people, which is not a good recipe. And there's always the compliance issues. In most cases, governance and transparency is managed through the use of procedures and checklists, and those processes are highly reliant upon key individuals and manual checklists. And so as those people take vacations or as they retire, there's a huge hit to efficiencies within the overall process within admissions. There's an increasing demand for content at your fingertips. We're a very impatient society today, and so the fight is we should have information, we should have it immediately when it's received. It's anticipated that when a student calls to find out where the admissions process is, we're able to provide that information immediately. In most cases, that's very difficult to do when trying to track down a paper admissions package. Is that the time to evaluate the admission packages for core requirements prior to initial evaluation of the process release? In other words, do we have all of the content that is required before we actually release a package out for evaluation for admission? We're finding that a lot of folks, a lot of admissions processes are actually using the process to track when they don't have enough content in place to make decisions, and have to go back to the student for additional information, and we've wasted a significant amount of time in processing that package prior to it being ready to move. And we have time-sensitive processing. We have enrollment deadlines and competition for open slots and trying to keep the top quality students inside our institutions. So these are all huge pulls on our time. Admissions is traditionally a very labor-intensive process. There's a huge amount of data keying, of transcript data into the student information systems. Aside from being labor-intensive, it also lends itself to errors whenever we're doing any type of data entry process. So let's take a different approach to looking at transcripts and see how we can handle things, but do things a little bit differently from the image source ILINX perspective. Just want to kind of give an overview of some of the things that we'll be talking about today and the admissions process in general from an advanced capture perspective or transcript processing perspective. So on the left-hand side, you have the orange paper documents, and these are documents, supporting documents, non-transcript documents that we're capturing all throughout the admissions process. We need to be able to handle those types of documents, as well as transcripts that are inbound as well. Our process is built so that we can make a determination through a rule, is this a transcript or not a transcript? If it is a transcript process, we actually engage the advanced capture module within our capture solution to extract information, and we'll take a look at that here in just a little bit to help drive the admissions process. Both transcript and non-transcript processes have validation processes and built-in workflow components that help us make decisions and move work packages along through the process that's completely definable, and again, we'll take a look at that in just a little bit as well. We also have the requirement to track and capture content, inbound content from things such as email inboxes, faxes, MFPs, network file directories, desktops, and so the solution provides the capability to do that as well as being able to handle transcripts received by EDI trading partners. So let's jump right in and start taking a look at some of the capabilities. Before we actually get started in taking a look at the extraction process, I wanted, hopefully everyone can see, we have a transcript up on the screen here in the capture process. And this is a transcript received from Frank A. Freshman, and this is from San Diego Community College District. These will all be kind of familiar to everybody that's on the call here. Unstructured data. We've got multiple sessions on this transcript with different courses called out, with different grade points, units attempted, units earned. And we need to extract this information. This information needs to get into our student information system and also provide the baseline for building the automated workflow process that we'll be taking a look at here in just a second. So I'm going to bounce back over to our advanced capture process and actually take a look at that transcript from a capture perspective. So we have scanned this transcript, and it is now in validation in the advanced capture capability. From here, we're taking a look at, I just want to walk you through kind of what this looks like now. We have a document date. We have the institution name. We've captured the FICE code for this particular institution as it's part of this document definition. The red highlighted box down here is telling us that we have not extracted the student last name, first name, and middle initial. And I'm going to go ahead and key in the student's last name, and this is a lookup into the student information system. And the reason the system, the advanced capture advanced capture solution didn't pull back a student is that there are 2 records in the SIS system for frank freshmen. And you notice the difference is the application, there are 2 different application numbers for frank freshmen. And so by selecting whichever of these apply to this particular transcript, I'm going back against the student information system and pulling back student information for this particular transcript. As you can see, we're extracting previous colleges, degrees awarded, and here you start seeing now the extraction from this transcript of all the different section and course information on this particular transcript. So you can see here I don't have any red arrows or any red boxes, so we've got a clean extraction here. And you notice here the system has given us a highlight down in this field. So I'm going to just bounce over to that field. You'll notice it takes me directly to the area in the transcript where there's a question. And the system's not sure if that's a 0 or an O. And it is a 0, so I'm going to go ahead and process that through, and I'm done with validation. I'm not going to save this real quick, so I also wanted to just quickly go over a couple other fields here on this form that are important to processing down the road here. There are instances where we don't know, or the student information is not in our student information system. In other words, the student record isn't loaded yet. And we require the capability, we want to still be able to process this, this particular transcript and put it into a hold queue and flag someone to actually add this record into the student information system. And so as an operator here, as a validation clerk, I have the ability to actually make a selection here which will allow this transcript to process into the workflow application when I don't know what the student ID number is and be able to handle that as an exception. I also have the ability to include or exclude this particular transcript information from from a TS-130 upload, which is in the PeopleSoft world. We're using PeopleSoft as our example today for a student information system, is the method by which we are able to push this transcript information and update PeopleSoft. So again, I have the capability here to include or exclude that particular transaction into PeopleSoft if I so desire. So once I've scanned this, this transcript, we're going to, sorry, let me close this down real quick. We're going to go into the workflow tool, which I had open before, and you'll see that I have a couple of workflow packages from an admissions perspective that are waiting to be processed. The first package that we're looking at is Frank Freshman. This is the transcript that we just scanned. And I'm looking in the viewer and actually looking at the transcript. If I go into the transcript details, here you're able to see a workflow form that was put together for our presentation. There's similar looking feel to some of our clients that are out working today. The idea here is that this kind of has a look and feel of a PeopleSoft screen, but this is the transcript information being displayed in a heads-up type view. So up above you have segregated out all of the student information. So here you have the admit term and Frank's information, email address, so on and so forth. Below is really kind of the meat here as far as how we transact for this first workflow step, and that is the application information. And so from a PeopleSoft perspective, the way that we move this work package out of a particular queue is by updating the program action and the program reason codes, which will actually then transmit whatever our next downstream process would be. So if we say that this first process is a coordinator, a grad coordinator review, and our next step after it's been approved there would be to the grad evaluator queue. By submitting here, this would automatically route this package to an evaluator for subsequent processing during the admissions process. A couple other key components to look at here is the ability, again, we're tracking things like athlete flags and the ability to track whether this student is flagged as an athlete, and if so, we can do special routing to the athletic department or advisors in the athletic department to notify that a transcript has been received or a review is required. Also, whether the student is foreign or domestic, lots of different capabilities here. So, and the ability to actually provide flexibility within your business process. So these may be things that you're not interested in, or there may be things here that aren't listed that are important to your process, which can easily be added and rules defined to actually assist with the overall workflow process. Other key component on this form is you'll notice here under institution names we have a listing of actual transcripts. And this is a calculator, if you will, where I have the ability, or you have the ability, let's say, to drill down and actually take a look at the transfer credits that were extracted from that particular, or the course and session information extracted from the transcript. This provides evaluators the ability to actually do what-if analysis and calculate if I include these courses or exclude these courses, what does that do to units attempted, earned, grade points, and total GPA. Typically, we find this task is done through manual calculators, and then handwritten on control copies of the transcript and passed around in paper format. So if you were looking at the total GPA here, and I select fall, you'll see that the GPA actually changes, goes up or down if I include this particular section, or sorry, course information. So this is a real-time ability to actually provide process efficiencies using this calculator, transfer credit calculator. I also have the ability here to segregate information through the tabs that we have here, and this is just, again, not a requirement, but something that can be done. And so here you can see we can break out student information and actually, let's say we want to start parsing out information to be viewed by different parts of the organization. We can provide look-sees into segregated information such as student information, or actually supplemental records. So we're able to actually look at things like in the application folders for this particular student, do we have letters of recommendations or residency questionnaires? All of the content associated with this particular student can actually be viewed and viewed in many different ways, but we find this is one of the ways that folks find most helpful and easiest to extend out throughout the organization. I'd also like to show you an example of as the transcript actually left the advanced capture tool and landed in our workflow process. This would be an example of an outbound EEI transmission, the TS-130, to upload, in this case, PeopleSoft from our example. And so this is an example of information, this transaction being built by information extracted during the advanced capture process and triggered by the workflow process, again, to update PeopleSoft. And you notice, if you recall, back in the advanced capture process, we had the ability to include or exclude this transaction from the workflow process. We also have the ability, as I mentioned before, the way to move this particular work package in this particular scenario is by making updates to the program action and or program reason fields. And these are sample outputs or updates into PeopleSoft. Whenever those fields are changed, this is what gets pushed into PeopleSoft from a raw data perspective, and you're able to see the actual transaction date and when it was processed. And finally, a key component, I think, to efficiency gains is being able to map to checklists and being able to tie content as it's received and process through the capture process, being able to update checklists and immediately so that we know which requirements have been satisfied and which requirements are left open, and don't need to pass this the receipt of a document to a clerk to actually do an entry into or an update to the PeopleSoft checklist table. So these checklist codes are mapped to document types, and we all know that not all document types or content types require checklist codes, but those that do, when they're received or processed through the capture tool, are automatically updated and posted into PeopleSoft, further providing additional efficiencies. So from a benefits realized from an image source solution perspective, advanced capture and the ability to provide automated capture at every point of content consumption is paramount. And so the ability, although today we've looked at this in past webinars, and today we're not diving into it, but the ability to actually manage email inboxes and drop content directly into this process from your email inbox, or monitoring an email inbox and pulling all of the content in is paramount, and processing without human intervention is also a capability that's very important and key. Being able to leverage existing hardware infrastructure. Not everyone has scanners, or scanners don't exist everywhere, but there are MFPs typically everywhere, and so the ability to scan content on MFPs and actually get that content into the repository and trigger workflow is paramount, and the iLinks products provide that capability. Advanced capture capabilities enable us to enable processing within the workflow, the tool. Everything in workflow is triggered by, for the most part, the receipt of the transcript and the information contained within the transcript, and the associated documents received are all attached and become a part of that working process. Improved tracking and transparency and efficiencies are driving the process. So the ability to actually be able to locate where a student admission package is in the process, and be able to determine what's left, be able to determine if a package has been stalled or sitting on someone's desk or in their work queue for over an accepted period of time, to be able to monitor that in real time and do exception-based processing is paramount to the success of the admissions process, and provided with the iLinks solutions. Again, the ability to actually improve self-service to students. We're not going to let them all the way into our process here. I guess that would be up to you, but you do have the ability to provide information faster and provide more accurate information to students and customers of student services. On average, we're seeing the clients that have implemented a solution similar to what we just described realize a reduction in process time of roughly 78%. Extending the solution to finance. And so earlier we talked about the ability to actually extend some of these key concepts, and the inability for some of the solutions in the marketplace today to actually extend or charge additional licensing to be able to extend the solution is difficult. And with our solution, we have the ability to actually include advanced capture for things other than transcripts, like procurement and AP processing. We take a real quick peek. So here is the advanced capture tool that we were just looking at. In this case now, assume that I am an AP clerk. We're actually taking a look at an invoice received. As you can see here, the form fields have changed a little bit. So here we've got the extracted invoice number, invoice date, and the vendor information, delivery address, and then we actually have line item data extracted from the invoice. Again, this is all can be personalized to your business process, but if there's a PO that we need to grab, if there are processing rules that need to be applied, those can all be added to the document definition and scripted. It's a very powerful tool. Again, this is an example of actually extending the capabilities of advanced capture outside of just the admissions process and for transcripts. Another key feature of our solution is codeless integration and finally, a key feature that differentiates our solution from others in the marketplace is codeless integration to student information systems, ERPs, and line of business applications. So the key here is image enabling, or the ability to push and pull information by providing access to content from the native application. So the majority of folks that are using the iLink Integrate tool that spend most of their days in PeopleSoft or other line of business applications don't really know that there is an enterprise content management solution behind the scenes. What they know is that when they're looking at an invoice in PeopleSoft, there's a button on their screen that asks them if they'd like to view the actual invoice document. And by pressing that button, they're actually executing a retrieval from the content store repository and viewing that image online right next to their PeopleSoft screen without any code-based changes. There are no requirements from an upgrade perspective to make changes. This is a very powerful tool and does differentiate and provide value right out of the box to our clientele. With that, Kim, I'd like to thank everyone for your time today and attention. And Kim, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Dave. We do have a couple of questions that came in, so if we can get a couple more minutes of your time. The first one is, how are documents other than transcripts scanned? Do we have to use advanced capture for all of our documents?
Good question, and no, you don't. Let's hop back over, and I can show you real quick some additional capability here. I'm going to go back into our capture tool, and I'm just going to select the capture tab. I'm going to create a new batch, and I'm going to create a batch for a non-transcript and say OK. I don't have a scanner attached to my PC right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and import a document. And I'm going to grab this residency questionnaire. And so up comes the residence questionnaire, and I now have the ability to actually assign metadata. And so here I can just key in the student ID, and you can see I've bounced up against the student information system, and this student ID belongs to Thurston Howell III. But you can see that all the information is flooded. I am now down to the document type section. And again, typically we're seeing anywhere from 250 to 350 different document types in the admissions process. I have the ability to do type ahead to get to my document type and make my selection and then submit and, oops, sorry. Didn't get everything that I needed there from a document capture or an index perspective. But now I'm able to actually transact and push this content into the repository.
The next one is, how are transcripts received via EDI processed?
Another good question. So we have lots of higher ed clients that are a part of the EDI trading partnership. And transcripts are, EDI transcripts that are inbound are typically, file-based in a large stream, and that information is typically received into, in a lot of instances, PeopleSoft. What we do is, with our solution, is we actually monitor the PeopleSoft staging tables and look for new EDI transcripts that have been received. When we see those, we actually extract the data or make a copy of the data from the staging table and break those transcripts down or put them into PDF format and then drop them into the content store repository. And then by process, some of our business clients don't want to kick off a workflow when they're received, and others do, and we have the capability either way. Or whatever your business process is. So based on that EDI transcript receipt, being able to actually kick off a workflow process and streamline the admissions process for those documents as well.
Okay, Dave, thank you. So I think that concludes all the questions we have time for today. We're just just inside of our half hour. So if you have any additional questions, you can send them to Dave. He's got his email up here on the screen, or you can reach us at by our website at imagesourcesync.com.